At the end of Season 3 of Power Rangers, the producers had finally run out of ideas, and also run out of footage from Japanese shows, and they were forced to leave the Mighty Morphin era behind and relaunch the show with Power Rangers Zeo. But before that, they had Season 3 to cobble together, and it's here that got crazy. The first two seasons had been based on the 16th and 17th seasons of Super Sentai, known as Kyoryuger Sentai Zyuranger and Gosei Sentai Dairanger, which, yes, I know I'm butchering with my pronunciation. But Season 3 began a slightly different approach to using Super Sentai footage. They were still using the original suits from Zyuranger, except for the White Ranger, of course, which came from Dairanger, which we covered in the previous video. And Rita and Lord Zed are all still there, along with Finster, Guldar and all the rest. But there's another set of villains to consider, at least for a small part of the series. At the very start of Season 3, there's a weird crossover with Masked Rider. This was because Masked Rider the show, which was based on Kamen Rider Black, was being launched around the same time in the US, and Saban, or however you want to pronounce it, wanted it to be more of a spin-off than the unloved cousin. Once the introduction of Masked Rider is dealt with, however, the show mostly forgets about him and gets to work erasing the reliance on the Dairanger Zords. A series of attacks leaves the Thunder Zords on the brink of destruction. It's unclear exactly where this footage was shot, as it wasn't part of Dairanger or the following season. It may have been shot in Japan, but it looks more likely to be American footage with bits of Japanese footage thrown in, using Season 18 for some of the characters, but we'll get onto that later. The Rangers are unable to morph, and so head out on a quest to find Ninja, supposedly the creator of the power coins, and as such he could potentially provide new powers and new Zords. They find Ninja in a jar for some reason, and while initially unsure, he agrees to entrust the Rangers with ninja powers and also introduces them to their new Ninja Zords. Both Ninja and the Ninja Zords are from Ninja Sentai Kakuranger, but those Zords actually have two different timelines as they appear in both the TV show and also the original 1995 movie. In the film, the Rangers travel to the planet Phaedos to attain new powers and also their new Ninja Zords so that they can take on Ivan Ooze. There's no mention of Ninja at all, so the timelines remain separate and the movie is not canon to the TV show. As it happens, partway through Season 3, Lord Zed is able to take control of the Falcon Zord, as well as obtaining Kimberly's power coin and subsequently the other Zords, all thanks to a new character called Kat, who, like Tommy, was unfortunate enough to find herself under the control of Rita's spells. The Zords are then replaced with Zed's own ancient Zords, or also known as the Shogun Zords, which have their own Megazord form as well. While the Rangers adopt new custom ninja suits, when morphed they still use the original Zyuranger suits, so like in the previous season, there was a need to use a mix of recycled Zyuranger footage and newly shot American footage. Later, after having her power coin returned, Kimberly actually leaves to pursue a career as a gymnast, and a now good Kat becomes the new Pink Ranger. But Kat doesn't actually have a Zord, as there's no Pink Ranger in the Kakuranger series. The Crane Zord used by Kimberly was actually used by the White Ranger in the Japanese show, and the Falcon Zord, by another name, is something completely different, but more on that in a minute. As a result, Kat is sometimes seen in a Zord with Tommy, although there is a custom cockpit used for Shogun Megazord in which she has a seat. Kat is actually promised the Crane Zord by Zordon, saying that she will receive it when all of Rita's residual magic has worn off. But that never really happens because these Zords aren't used much longer. It's only the Falcon Zord that reappears, for reasons that become more apparent in Kakuranger. Although, having said that, in footage that is exclusive to the US show, Titanus actually makes a return and has supposedly been modified by Alpha so that it can combine to form the Ninja and Shogun Ultra Zords. But Season 3 was actually considerably shorter than the previous two seasons. As Power Rangers prepared to transition from the Mighty Morphin era to the Zeo era, the American producers set up a miniseries in which Master Vile, or Rita's father, turns half of Angel Grove, including the Rangers, into children. Season 3.5, as it were, or the Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, sees Zordon and Alpha calling on help from the Aquitian Rangers, these ridiculous-looking and also ridiculous-sounding aliens from Aquitar that morph into their own version of Power Rangers. This gave the US producers a means of using footage of the actual Kakurangers, which they weren't able to do in Season 2 with the Dairanger footage because the suits were completely different. While all this is going on, the kids are sent on spirit quests to retrieve pieces of the Zeo crystal to restore their proper ages and powers, and thankfully it's all done without a hint of cultural appropriation whatsoever, he said sarcastically. But all of their struggles are in vain, because Guldar and Rito, or Rita's brother, steal the completed Zeo crystal and blow up the command centre, thus bringing an end to the Mighty Morphin era and setting us up for the start of Power Rangers Zeo. So that's what we all got in the West, but what about Japan? What about Ninja Sentai Kakuranger? Well, I'd strap yourselves in, because this is a bumpy ride. Unlike with Zyuranger or Dairanger, in Kakuranger we have a narrator who appears on screen for the first 20-odd episodes to give additional information and also a bit of comic relief from a show that's already fairly comical, although sometimes accidentally. We learn the story of 5 heroes who long ago locked away a monster called Nurarayon, insert correct pronunciation here, the boss of the yokai ninjas, behind a gate of seals, putting the yokai into a dormant state, and then we abruptly switch to modern day, or at least 1996 anyway. But it turns out that the bumbling descendants of those 5 heroes, named Sasuke and Saizo, are going to be our focus for the start of the series. But to their credit, they do come to the aid of a man being beaten up on the streets, only when they return his bag to him, the man insists that they take it to a shrine on an island somewhere, before overdramatically passing away. While they're trying to find the shrine, they encounter these creepy masked kids and something lurking in the water. The kids turn out to be ninjas and chase Sasuke and Saizo to a dead end until they accidentally open the gate. But it turns out that it was all a trick to get them there in the first place. The old man isn't dead at all, and isn't even a man. This dapper-looking mother called Sandayu then saunters down on a cloud to inform them that they've opened the gate that enclosed the yokai. No, not the same as the Nintendo ones exactly, but kind of. Before the old man turns into a kappa, which actually is a yokai demon found in traditional Japanese folklore, which our Japanese narrator will now confirm.
古くから沼や池に住んでると言われ、特に女の人のお尻を触るのが大好きという。
I'm sorry, they like what now?
特に女の人のお尻を触るのが大好きというおじさんも大好きであります。
This was a kid's show, wasn't it? The yokai escape while Scream's camp cousins dance in celebration. These are our putty characters, or Doro Doro, which obviously never appeared in Power Rangers. Saizo and Sasuke are then sent spiralling through space and time before ending up in front of a castle which has katanas belonging to the 5 heroes still stuck in the ground. A paper crane descends and turns into a woman called Tsuruhime, who seemingly knows Saizo and Sasuke. The swords can supposedly only be pulled from the ground by the heirs of those ninja heroes. Not only does it work, but the castle then disintegrates to reveal a giant mechanized Zord called the Mighty Shogun. The new Rangers' ancestors then appear and hand down their Doron changers, effectively their morphers, to these first 3 of the new Rangers. The yokai appear and then cue the first morph or henge sequence. Tsuruhime gets to work on the screen putties while Saizo and Sasuke bumble their way through learning their new powers, until the Mighty Shogun steps in and then a flying squid head with sunglasses appears, before wrapping up and the narrator explodes. That's episode 1. There's 52 more episodes of this, and 2 specials. At the start of episode 2, Saizo and Sasuke head out in search of another ranger, Seikai, while Tsuruhime seeks out Sandayu to retrieve a vehicle for the Kakurangers. Its name, yes it has a name, is Nekamaru, and now we know where they got the idea for the van in Dumb and Dumber. After encountering Kappa again, now with his wife, a Rokurakubi, another Japanese folklore yokai, they morph and then commence fighting to the sound of some smooth jazz. I do kind of like the smooth jazz. Tsuruhime appears in Nekamaru to save them, and Seikai becomes the 4th Kakuranger. Kappa then reappears and grows into a giant, only Sasuke is able to take control of a Zord and enters into battle with the Kappa, cucumber bombs and all, clearly, before eventually slicing him in 2 with some kind of giant Beyblade. And you thought Power Rangers got a little bit weird. At the start of episode 3, it turns out that Nekamaru is also a means of making money for the Rangers as a mobile crepe restaurant. Obviously. And we're then introduced to a yokai that we definitely know from the US show. But not only that, look, it's the shark bikes. I thought these were specific to the US show, but I was wrong. The US show just shot new bespoke footage using the American actors on the shark bikes, but they originated in Kakuranger. Except these ones are a little bit different, as they're able to combine to form a mega shark catapult thing. Sprinkle on a bit of cultural appropriation with the American ninja, and we're all square. But it turns out that this American ninja is actually the 5th Kakuranger, called Jiraiya, who throughout the series speaks a mix of Japanese and American English. Jiraiya is seemingly on the side of the yokai, but leaves a letter for the Kakurangers that he's actually trying to find the remaining 4 scrolls, or Makemono, so that they can all access their Zords. After a showdown with the local yokai boss, Jiraiya is able to morph and retrieve the Makemono for a full lineup of giant beasts. In episode 4, we learn Sasuke is able to shapeshift into a fly, and then also something that resembles a yokai, somehow. It's never really explained, but I'm sure it's something equally as bonkers as everything else so far. But there's all sorts of ninja powers, like the art of the doppelganger, which also isn't really explained. Then there's a load more shapeshifting, with the yokai shifting into a ball that they then play baseball with, and I just... The Shoguns combine into the Mighty Shogun, the yokai goes bye-bye, and then the narrator tries to combine with his desk. Actually, you know what, that's actually quite a good one, we should have thought of that. But seriously, it's like watching the spiritual successor to Batman, where they just happen to have a secret power or weapon that they hadn't mentioned before, like bat shark repellent. Not to mention the comic book fight scenes and the occasional dancing too. I don't even know how to describe the episode where one of the Rangers grows giant because of a yokai inside him, so they send Tsuruhime up on a kite with a giant pepper pot to make him sneeze it out. You know, we could have just stopped at Die Ranger. In episode 12, the Jusho fighters appear, which are basically just slightly more nimble versions of the Shoguns, and they must be important for something, but the show doesn't really explain it very well. It's basically just an excuse to double the number of Zords on screen. Then in episode 14, we get our first glimpse at the Prince Jr., or Gasha Dokuro, which again I'm sure is the wrong pronunciation, who has a human-looking form and also a yokai form. The yokai form we would recognise as Rita Revolto, or Rita's brother, in Power Rangers. Although the prince isn't bumbly and stupid like Rito, he's more akin to a Lord Zed type figure. Oh, and he's also a musician that shreds on an electric guitar because it was the 90s and that was the law back then. Oh, and just going back to what I said earlier, I said that there was no Pink Ranger in Kakuranger, but technically there is, sort of. Except she's part of the Flower Kunoichi gang, the prince's personal team of ninjas that make multiple appearances throughout the series. In episode 23, we get another new Zord, Suba Samaru, which we would know as the Falcon Zord. And even though no one is piloting it, it doesn't matter because in Kakuranger, like in some of the other Super Sentai series, the Zords are actually living creatures, so can summon themselves and also fight on their own as well. It can also combine with the Mighty Shogun to form the Super Mighty Shogun, or the Shogun Mega Falcon Zord as we would know it. Meanwhile, the prince is on the verge of bringing back the king, which we would know as Master Vile, so Sandayu tells the Rangers of the Heavenly Triad of Zords. There's the Mighty Shogun, which we already know about, there's Suba Samaru, which we've just been introduced to, and then there's also Kakure Shogun, which we're yet to learn about. These were all human at one point, but their souls faded away and they became the Triad. But to control Kakure Shogun, they must find yet another set of scrolls that have, predictably, been scattered and lost. One by one, the Rangers retrieve their shinobi scrolls to bring life to their new Zords. Now these are the Zords that we would recognise from the earlier episodes of Season 3 of Power Rangers, and also from the original movie. And also, can we just take a moment to appreciate Japanese Wolverine here from episode 28? Not that it has anything really important to do with the story, but this was way before the first Hugh Jackman X-Men movie. In episode 30, Tsuruhime's father, or Hakamenro, appears, who she actually thought was dead. Not only that, but he's joined with the yokai, only the prince doesn't trust him and gets enraged when his father, the king, defends him. To gain the prince's trust, Hakamenro heads out in search of the Kakurangers, plunging them all, but Tsuruhime, off a cliff. Before he gets an opportunity to kill his daughter, Sandayu steps in to save her, while the rest of the Rangers are plucked from a river by a kid called Bun, who we find out much later is actually a good yokai that escaped. The prince then confronts Sandayu and, after a short battle, kills him with his own sword. In seeking revenge, we get our first look at the Great Kakure Shogun, or Ninja Megazord to us, and in fact Ninja Mega Falcon Zord, as it's able to combine with Suba Samaru. This leads to the prince's death, but it's all too late, as the Infernal King has already returned. Unlike with Zyuranger and Dairanger before it, there's no 6th Ranger that appears partway through the series. Instead, and not until episode 36, we're introduced to Ninja Man. After 1,000 years of exile, he's been brought back to Earth on a meteorite, a fact made clear to the Kakurangers from a secret note sent by Hakamenro. He was once an apprentice to the Triad, but was tricked by the Infernal King to hurt innocent people. As a result, he was entrapped by the Triad as punishment. Hence why when we're introduced to him in Power Rangers, he first appears in a jar. The only ones that can release Ninja Man from the jar in which he's sealed are from the Tsuruhime bloodline, which means it's a race between Tsuruhime herself and her father, who's been sent by the king to retrieve the jar and bring Ninja Man onto the side of the yokai. Only her father actually helps her succeed in releasing him, and Ninja Man becomes an ally to the Kakurangers, whilst also revealing that he can take a different form in Samurai Man, which means there's now just a ridiculous number of Shoguns. In episode 42, the Infernal King is able to create a doppelganger called Dara Dara, who is able to absorb Ninja Man's powers and try to lure the Triad into a trap. The Rangers attempt to meet up with Hakamenro, but they're ambushed, and 4 of them are captured alongside Ninja Man, making Dara Dara even more powerful, leading to an epic battle with the Heavenly Triad. Although seeing as Dara Dara has absorbed all of their powers, it puts their lives at risk if the Triad wins. However, Sasuke is rescued from the Kunoichi gang by Tsuruhime's adopted twin brothers, who had been hidden as 2 German shepherds that were at Bun's side, but their time is limited as they will die the next time they take on human form. Sasuke rushes to save the other Rangers and Ninja Man, delivering a blow to the king that destroys Dara Dara, as they both share the same soul. With their powers now returned, Dara Dara is destroyed, and the king turns Hakamenro into stone for his betrayal. Skipping over the Christmas and New Year's episodes, as they don't really add anything to the main storyline, the series picks back up again properly in episode 51, with a statue version of Hakamenro causing havoc, blowing up buildings. He's stuck in a living hell, doomed to rampage for all eternity, unless Tsuruhime takes up a sword and kills him herself. But she's unable to do it, leaving her on a cliff edge facing her own father, until Taro and Jiro, her brothers, wrestle him over the edge. Taro and Jiro then pass away because even if they hadn't fallen off a cliff, they've used up their last opportunity to return to human form, but Hakamenro is returned to normal. In the final episode, just as the Rangers are about to strike down the Infernal King, the Triad appears to dissuade them. They tell them that the king is made of human hatred, and killing him will just release it all into the world. It's a Pandora's box type of thing, basically. He must be captured alive and then locked behind the Door of Seals, coming full circle back to the first episode. Although there's also a message about locking away hatred in our hearts or something. I don't really know, but I guess it's a kids show, so you've got to have at least one lesson in 19 hours of episodes. But anyway, they're able to summon an actual Door of Seals and eventually shut him away, sealing the door with their Doran changers. And that's it. God knows how the American producers were able to take any of Kakurangers and turn it into Power Rangers. I'm even surprised that we're able to make sense of it all for this video. There's a lot of craziness to digest in Kakuranger, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with Power Rangers whatsoever. You can see why the reboot was necessary in the end with Power Rangers Zeo. But there were actually 2 additional episodes of Kakurangers that sit outside the continuity of the main series. One of which, considered the Kakuranger movie, isn't actually a movie at all, it's just an additional episode that doesn't really add anything to the story. And the other was released long after Kakuranger had finished. It was even after the next iteration, Cheriki Sentai O-Ranger, which was the basis for Power Rangers Zeo. The Japanese shows generally ran one after the other, one ending in February and the next starting in March. In March in 1996, even after the first episode of Gekisu Sentai Kakuranger, which was used to develop Power Rangers Turbo, a direct-to-video half-feature-length crossover movie came out that was technically treated as a special episode of O-Ranger, but was a specific O-Ranger vs Kakuranger storyline. This was the first of the proper crossovers, and saw a plot that specifically called for the cast of Kakuranger to return, rather than just a gathering of pre-morphed rangers, like in previous crossovers. In this version, a new type of yokai fusion is created, and the Orangers' attempts at thwarting it aren't enough. And then for some reason they end up in an old western town, or an amusement park, it's a bit hard to tell, where the Kakurangers appear as cowboys to save them from the putties du jour. The Kakurangers, being the experts on yokai, agree to help them before this new piggy bank yokai is able to do whatever it is that's going on here. The two join forces, but it's the Oranger arsenal that eventually takes out the bad guys. And, well, that's all there is. So I guess until our Zeo adventure, cue the Dora Dora dance.